From the Wayne County Courthouse in Goldsboro, North Carolina, Wayne Goldsboro Television brings you the meeting of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. The meeting begins shortly with an agenda briefing, then the regular meeting will begin soon after. Please stand by for the Wayne County Board of Commissioners meeting.
We'll call our meeting to order. And we're going to go over our agenda here this morning. The invocation and pledge of allegiance will be handled by Vice Chairman William Pate. I know him better as Bill Pate.
I have many aliases.
I hear you. We will have the approval of the minutes. I assume everyone's reviewed those and there are no changes to the minutes. Then we'll have a discussion. Is there any adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to add one, and that is to have you appoint the working group to review and make appropriate recommendations to the full board on noise, junk car, and housing codes. We talked about this as one of our goals, and so we need to have a working group to discuss that.
That'll be item 7 under new business.
Yes, sir. Noise, junk car, and housing code.
You got 3 minutes on it.
Noise, junk cars,
And housing code. And we will need a closed session on one personnel matter.
Okay. It shouldn't take very long, should it? Okay. Special recognition. We'll have a presentation on the retirement plaque of Tim Wells, and Mr. County Manager, I assume he's going to take care of
I
that.
think Geraldine's going to do that. She
Geraldine?
works for them.
Okay. At 9:15, we'll have the public hearing, public comments, I'm sorry. The appointment committee, do you have any appointments this morning?
We do.
And we may move that appointment committee report prior to the public comment in the event that time permits that. Unfinished business? Any unfinished business?
None that I'm aware of.
And then we'll go on to the consent agenda. There are 4 items on the consent agenda. Establishment of a meeting of the Wayne County Board of Adjustment on February the 2nd of 2016 at 9:30 a.m. to receive public comments on a special use permit for proposed solar facility, Wilfork Solar LLC at 385 Dalpate Road. Is anybody going to give us a briefing on that?
Chip.
Well, there's Mr. Chip this morning. Good morning.
Good morning. How you doing? We have 1 item here, or 2 items for a Board of Adjustments meeting. We'll require a public advertisement. It's a special use permit for Wilfork Solar LLC at 385 Dalpate Road, and one for Robin Solar LLC, 898 O'Berry Road. You're just establishing the meeting and the public hearing at this point.
So that's all we're doing is just establishing the public hearing.
We can, at that meeting, I'll present the evidence that I've already presented in your agenda packages again, in more detail. There's, in that information, we provided, clearance from Seymour Johnson, agreements between the landowner and the developer. We provided the contract with the electrical company that's purchasing power, the agreement there, and a decommissioning and abandonment plan. And I'll go over those at that hearing, unless you want me to go through it today.
All right, but at this point, there
At
is,
this point, you're just scheduling the meeting.
and there is no opposition by the Seymour Johnson.
Well, no, there is no opposition on either of these cases.
Okay.
They both have.
So this will give an opportunity for the public to make comments.
And it meets the requirements for advertisement. And we notify adjoining property owners at that point in time, and they can come to the meeting.
Sure. Is there any questions of Mr. Crump? Okay, moving on to the next item, and that is application for 2015 elderly and disabled property tax exclusion.
We have a couple of those in here. You see the information that Alan has provided on this, actually just one. And the gentleman just did not realize what the deadline was, is all he said here. But it is in keeping with what we've been doing.
All right, and then budget amendments.
First Amendment 225 is for $719.41.
Excuse me. Welcome, new finance director.
I had messed up already.
Okay, go ahead.
$719.41, and this is to actually return an insurance refund that the company sent us in error. Number 228 is $726.62 for the sheriff's department. This is for insurance proceeds. 229 is $2,128.75, and this is for an insurance refund to the sheriff's department. Number 230 is for $7,000. This is for the COACH program, which is Community Oriented Prevention Education Program. I think it was formerly known as the DARE program. And they work with kids, the kids program. Number 232 is for the sheriff's department. $10,998.58 is for insurance proceeds. $2,203 for services on aging, and this is an additional supplement to the SHIP grant that we received, and this is additional money received and no county money is involved. Number 240 is for the sheriff's department, $43.02 to anticipate and appropriate controlled substance receipts. And number 241 for the sheriff's department is for $100, and this was for donation money received.
Okay, any questions on any of the budget amendments? Then none, we're gonna move on to new business. First item is a motion to approve the final subdivision plat for Plantation Point, Section 1.
Okay. We have a final plat here. Get to it here. Plantation Point's a 16-lot final. J&N Developers is the developer. Surveyor is Dan Butler. Engineer is Brian Jones. It's in the Indian Springs Township off of Sleepy Creek Road. It's lots 1 through 16. It's one street and one new street. There are 3 open space areas. One street, Padstone Court. It is 1/2 mile west of its intersection with Sleepy Creek, Arrington Bridge Road. It's zoned outer horizontal for height restrictions only. The average lot size is 20,594. Building lots will utilize public water, and it's in a rural enclave area on the Wayne County Growth Strategy map. Improvements are complete. NCDOT has provided a built standards letter. I think I included that in your agenda package. And the developer has signed a statement on the plat regarding the maintenance of the street and right-of-way until accepted onto the state secondary road system. So it's within the Spring Creek High School, Spring Creek Middle, Spring Creek Elementary school districts, Southeast Wayne Sanitary, serviced by Indian Springs Fire, EMS Station 8. It is within the Goldsboro MPO for transportation planning. There are no water supply watershed rules in place. There are no voluntary ag districts present, and it's in Board of Commissioners District 6. The planning board has recommended the plat be approved.
I don't want to open up a can of worms this morning, but you're saying that the developer has signed a statement in regards to the maintenance and turning that street over to NCDOT.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
My concern is that we look at that requirement in such a way to make sure that we are protecting those property owners against the possibility of that corporation or limited liability corporation or company or whatever filing bankruptcy, and therefore they would not be obligated. Are you following?
I follow you.
So what I'm saying is, and I recognize that we've had discussions in regards to requiring them at a certain point to submit that letter to NCDOT.
Correct.
And we have limited I hope we're working on a policy to give a little bit more teeth to it, is what I'm saying.
We will, we have a proposal before the planning board right now to increase the penalties for not complying with it. And we spell it out in the ordinance that it has to be applied for within 6 months of becoming eligible, meeting the criteria for the DOT. If you don't apply, then you're subject to being in non-compliance with the ordinance, and you can assess a civil penalty against them.
All right, so we're putting some more teeth to it.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr.
That
Chairman.
is, thank you.
I have a
Yes,
question.
Commissioner Bell.
What would be wrong with upfront when somebody design and build a development, that they create the same condition that you would need for the state to take it over? I mean, upfront, just do everything.
We have that now.
Well, John, I think the issue is they build it to state standards, and in fact, you have the letter from Giles saying it meets state standards. Problem is, they don't have enough houses in there yet for the state to take it in. And that's the delay, that's what's causing all the problem, is the state's policy is what causes the problem.
I guess we have to work on that then, won't we?
State legislature will not allow a county to enforce a maintenance bond, nor will it allow a county to withhold building permits against a developer. So
That's
those are
new,
two.
something the legislature's just passed.
I beg your pardon?
That, what he just said is new,
That's just been passed.
Correct.
Because we were looking at both of those.
Yes, Commissioner Acott.
I'm like you, I open up a can of worms. Most of this has been in place for years. The problem is, the state didn't have the money to take over the roads. The biggest now, the older subdivisions, no. I mean, those streets were not paved to DOT specs. But at least for the last 15 years, the streets have been paved to DOT specs. The problem is getting the DOT to take them over. It's not always the number of houses. That's true. You do have to have a certain percentage of houses on a street for them to take it over. It's not always been the case. I mean, the case is, let's face it, the state was broke when it comes to fixing roads, and they just didn't take the roads over.
Yes, Commissioner Mayo.
Following up on that, if the policies that we have in place right now, they're not enforceable then, is that correct? Who has the power to enforce whatever we adopt?
Well, we can, if we adopt that into, those changes into our plan and, into our subdivision ordinance, the county can enforce that, civil penalty against them. But that's, beyond that, I'm not aware of any options that the county can take.
And the problem is, just what the chairman was talking about is, that's fine as long as the LLC continues to exist.
Right.
But subdividers create LLCs for a reason, and that is so that each one stands on its own, you know.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry, I opened up that can of worms. But anyway, we do need to really review that and make it as strong as possible so that we can get these streets
We'll have
taken
a
over.
proposal, and once it goes, the planning board's looking at it, when they get done with it, I'll bring it back to you.
Good enough. Any further discussion on that? Okay, we'll move on. Item 2 is a motion to approve job reclassifications in Wayne County Sheriff's Office and Detention Center.
The sheriff will be here at the 9 o'clock meeting, but I want to go ahead and go over some of this with you. We have met with him. Tommy and Geraldine have been working with him extensively on this. As y'all know, one of the biggest issues we have is that our sheriff's employees are underpaid, and particularly in relation to both Goldsboro PD and actually even Mount Olive PD. So we are looking at all of that. We're also looking at the jailers' salaries. Geraldine compared it with other jurisdictions around us. And what we're proposing to you is the detention reclassifications would start at 64, which would mean with no certification, an employee would start at $29,134 annually. It would stay in grade 64, and just to refresh your memory, every one of our grades, that first number, there's a 5% differential between each grade, okay? So they would stay on grade 64, but they would move further out on the scale If they have after they get the certification, they go up to $30,609, which I believe is about a 2.5% increase. No, I'm sorry, in that case, that's a 5% increase. On the detention 2 officer, they would go to $31,374, which is the 2.5. That's after they have a minimum of 2 years service plus the training. And then the master detention officer would be $32,962. After that, the corporal would go at 67, but they would be, as you can tell, just above the master detention. It's at 32.9. This would go to 33,726. Then a sergeant would go to 35.4, a first sergeant to 37,183. Then the lieutenant goes up 10%, which is 40,994 because they're over the whole shift. Then the captain, and if you recall, we have one captain and one major, and when we open the new jail, Captain Thaxton will have one of the jails direct supervision over it, and then, of course, Major Greenfield has both of them. And so the captain would go up, there's a pretty wide area there because it's a lot more responsibility than a lieutenant, and then the major goes up more than that to 63,595. So that's the detention part. On the enforcement reclassifications, we would start a deputy sheriff with no experience at grade 67, and that's 33,726. Then a deputy sheriff 1 would go up to 34,401. That's after completion of their field training. A deputy sheriff 2 would have a minimum of 2 years service plus the training, and they would go to 35,000. Then a master deputy with 5 years of experience would go to 35,790. And then after that, the corporals would start at 37,183. And then you'd have a sergeant and detective sergeants at 39,042, which is 5% more than corporal and detectives. First sergeant is another 5%, and then a lieutenant is 10% higher than that. Then the captain is 10% higher than a lieutenant, and the major is 20% higher than a captain. So that's the scale. And what we've done is included for you what the change would be on every person. And it comes to about $402,000. Now that's annually. And as y'all know, if you agree to this, this won't go into effect until the first pay period in March. So that's only 4 months of the year. So we had $300,000 budgeted, but the more we looked at it, we felt like this was the appropriate scale they needed to be on. But by phasing it in over 2 years, we'll be able to do that. We do want to come back to you. The one other group we think we do need to look at seriously this year is EMS with our paramedics, because we're having an issue there. We're losing people because they're getting raises of roughly 3,000 or more other places in order to, and they're leaving us. So that's where we're at. Those would be the two major departments we would look at. I'm not saying we won't look at one or two others, but in terms of large departments, those would be the only two you could afford to do this year with what we have budgeted. But again, it'll be in for 4 months this year, and then we would have some growth again next year, which would help us afford to do this.
Comments, questions?
The last two things answered were going to be my questions. How much and when?
Yeah, okay, okay.
Any further comments or questions?
Mr. Darty,
Commissioner Hayes.
it just, like Mr. Wood said, our law enforcement people, jail and sheriff's deputies and all, naturally, we got to be as conservative as we can with the taxpayers' dollars. But we're, for the surrounding counties and the surrounding cities, our people are underpaid. And it is about money, but then again, it's not all about money. The biggest thing is retention. I mean, we're training them. not only in the sheriff department, but in other departments too. We're training them and then they're going somewhere else. It's as much about retention as it is anything. Plus, they're letting their lives on the line for us every day. Thank you.
One other question. I know this is what we're looking at for this year is the Sheriff's Office and Emergency Services, but I know we need to look at some others. We're gonna begin to look at those next year.
Yes.
I was just thinking specifically like
No, you're right.
like DSS, it's the same issue.
You're right, and if you recall, when we talked about, said we couldn't possibly do it all in 1 year. So it's gonna be a multi-year thing.
I just wanna make sure that those
Yeah.
folks knew that they're not being excluded. That their
No,
time is
no,
cut.
and the approach we're taking is when we do one, we're trying to get it where it needs to be, not just piecemeal it and then come
Right.
back later. So this one, we feel like will be in good shape going forward. We want to do the same with the paramedics. We want to solve the problem there. And then, as you said, Bill, come back next budget year, try to put more money in that same account, and then try to do some other, and we do have an issue with DSS caseworkers. There's no doubt about that. We have a lot of turnover there, as both you and Ray have indicated before.
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Commissioner.
I would like to applaud the manager and the Human Resource Department for looking at this. I am a proponent of a decent and livable wage for everyone, and I take this opportunity to say that any agency that we have a funding relationship with, any of those funding agencies in the county, I would hope they would look as closely at a review of all salaries to make sure that everyone across the line was able to to be moving in the direction of a livable wage to deal with the economy as it is. I thank you.
Mr. Chairman, the only other thing I'd add is I want to give a lot of credit to the sheriff. He's worked very hard with us on this, and we feel like we've come up with a good career ladder plan for our employees here. It makes sense. I think it's defensible if we were challenged on it and that sort of thing. So I feel very good about where we're at with this going forward.
Is there any other comments? I do want to point out that when someone looks at this and see the $400,000 in additional expenses, that people recognize that, one, there's been a number of years since there's actually been an analysis.
Right.
And this board committed last year that we would start this process. This took place over a number of months of study and review, and it's something that we have got to do if we're going to be competitive in regards to bringing in our trained law enforcement. We're really running into a problem in regards to actually getting the detention officers to staff our new facility that we're about to open, and hopefully this will help the sheriff in recruiting those. Any other comments?
One final question.
Okay.
I don't know who may have the answer. How many, I was trying to get the end, how many total law enforcement folk do we have? I mean,
I believe it's
everybody.
about 115.
Well, I mean,
Now, that's sworn. Then we have the detention center. It's
that's what I
probably
meant,
about
everyone.
There's about 70 of those, so you're probably looking at about 185 people. That's why the price tag is what it is, because this is one of our biggest departments. Probably the only one that comes close to that would be DSS. With the number, when we get into DSS, that's going to be a big one too, just from the numbers of employees.
Mr. Chairman. Yes, Commissioner Mack.
Drawing a parallel, certainly we need to be competitive in our pay for our people, but as we move forward, let's remember that national survey of employees across the nation, that pay is not the number one concern of employees. A good place to work is. So my point is as we move along, we also look at our internal policies, making employees feel comfortable, part of the team, all these things really contribute to the total picture. So I agree that we need to be competitive, but it also goes further than that. Let's just keep that in mind as we move forward. Thank you.
All right, moving on to item 3, motion to approve the recommendation of the Advanced Manufacturing Center.
Okay, again, now they're gonna be here to make a presentation to you. I don't know if you wanna wait. on
Yeah,
that.
let's wait on that.
Okay. But we will have Dr. Albertson and Don Magoon here to make a presentation to you on that.
Just a brief summary, though, if you will kind of brief us a little bit in regards to the behind-the-scenes work that you've done
Okay.
on trying to resolve and getting this Wayne Advanced Manufacturing Center up and running.
Okay. Yeah, we've passed out to you these sheets, and first of all, let me say, we had a little bit of glitch on this. Don had sent this over, but we didn't realize there were multiple sheets to his spreadsheet, so you didn't get the full thing in your packet. So we wanted to go over that with you. Again, I apologize for that. But what he's done is, and I guess to go back to what the chairman's saying, we have been working with Don Magoon for several months, Kendall and I, to go down his list of what he wanted to do. Kendall and I have reviewed each item. Recently, we had a working group that included 3 commissioners, and we met with them again, went through that again with he and Dr. Albertson, went through everything one more time. So while we may not totally agree on the numbers, those are estimates. And the thing we have agreed to, as you saw in my memo, is what we're asking today is that you proceed on with phases 1 and 3, which will be done by Kendall's forces. And then that they will then go out and hire an architect. We will not do it, they will do it. And at that point, then these other 6 phases will be done architecturally, because there's enough complexity there. You've got to use an architect by state law. And then once we get that, they'll bid the items out at that point, once the architect's done that work. And so these estimates will be replaced, of course, by actual bids. So that's where we're at. The other thing we asked them to do, and you'll see this on these sheets that we handed out, is we asked them to break it out between the facility and equipment. And the reason for that is virtually all of the equipment is being done without county money. That's primarily with grant funds. It's also some of their annual state appropriations. They get some money every year to buy some equipment and things like that. And also the bond funds would be used there. But the first page here, this is phases 1 and 3. This is what we would be doing immediately if you're in agreement today. So there's the list there. It's about $470,000, and you'll see that from the county, there would be, the first year would be $25,937. The others, it would primarily come from their funding. Now, some of this, of course, is dependent on the bond, and we'll just have to see if that passes in March. And we do recognize, and I put that in the memo, that if the bond doesn't pass, then we'll have to revisit how we're going to pay for all of this. The second page is a continuation of facilities, and the third page, that is all of the phases. And then what you did have in your packet, in your booklet, which we didn't make an additional copy of, is the equipment. And the equipment is about $2,100,000. And again, you'll see from that, that's being paid for primarily from their monies, and virtually almost nothing from the county on that. So that's where we're at on the whole project. But they'll go into more detail with it. And we do have the map, but you had that in your packet as well, but we'll be going over that. And phases 1 and 3 that we're asking to move forward for, you'll see they are lumped together here. It's the entry area primarily. So, but again, we had 3 members of the commission that reviewed this. I believe it was Wayne and Joe. So if y'all have any comments you want to make about it.
Mr. Doug. Yes, Commissioner.
Just want everyone to keep in mind, there's general statutes that are different for the community colleges than they are for county government. And we certainly got to go by that. But also, I don't want anybody to think that I'm not in favor of the advanced manufacturing, because I am. But some of the information that we got in the beginning was probably not correct. Not probably, but it wasn't correct. And also, the county just worked very closely with the Board of Education in Wayne County to build 2 new schools. There were 3 superintendents involved in that. Those 3 superintendents at the time did not make the decision to build the new schools. The county commissioners and the Board of Education made the decision to build the new schools. The county manager did not make the decision on us building a new jail. That decision was the county Board of Commissioners. On this advanced manufacturing, the Board of Trustees at the college basically were not really heavily involved. And I think that was a mistake. I mean, if you're not going to use a board, you might as well not have a board. The Board of Trustees at the college is going to have an all-day retreat on the 29th of January, and I think we'll have a whole lot better hand on what's going on after the 29th. But I've just, I've got concerns about the advanced manufacturing, the process, and not in the direction that it's going now, because we can make it work. But I just think we got some information in the beginning that probably we should have researched a little more. But, and I can go into more detail on that at the 9 o'clock meeting. But I just want to let the board know the concerns that I have. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments.
Yes, Chairman.
Yes, Commissioner.
Just one question on page 2. The WCDA Phase 1 and 3, is that 98,246? Does that actually impact Wayne money?
Yeah, that's the 100,000
Okay.
that they've allocated out. That's
Okay.
right.
All right, thank you.
Okay, any other questions on that?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner. Martin.
Mr. Wood, did you say that on phase 1 and 2, Kendall, our group would be doing the work?
Yeah, it's actually 1 and 3. But
1 and
yes,
3, I meant, not
but
1
yes,
and
we'll
2.
be, yes. We think all of this we can do.
Well, then, no extra labor cost was involved in coming up with a final figure at the bottom? I mean, did you, when the $470,000, does that include, if you?
It does not include.
It does not include labor, so that dollar figure would actually, based upon what I have to do with people who work for me, if I buy $1 worth of lumber, it's gonna take $1 worth of labor to get it done. So that figure right there should be 2 times $470,000 in reality, if my meager ability to calculate.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the number would be, but you're right. It's a savings from what it would be.
So as we go down the road on this, and this is where I want to make a point of this, Mr. Acock, I don't know what your future comments may be, but when we talk about the dollar figure that we paid for it in the beginning with what I thought was a ready building, ready to go to serve that purpose, it'd be a little bit misleading to say that $470,000 was just that cost. It was, I mean, when it gets down to reality, it doubles when you're talking about $1 for $1 in terms of materials plus the labor. I just want to point that out.
Yes, if I might comment on that, and that is, this board needs to recognize that it is our responsibility to provide the facilities to the community college. Now, as such, if we have them going out and actually hiring individuals to produce that work, then we have to fund that. So I think it was a great compromise to see that we would use our resources and our personnel to actually do phase 1 and 3 to reduce that cost to the local taxpayers. So I think it was a good compromise, and look forward to moving forward on it. Yes, Commissioner Mayo.
I agree with that because that was talked about up front. The building belongs to the county still. We're leasing it. So phase 1 and 3 is for the building only. basically. Is that correct?
Right.
Building belongs to
WCDA, I'm
That's
sorry.
correct.
Yeah.
It belongs to WCDA, but the key is that whatever improvements are made, no matter who occupies that building, those improvements to the building are always gonna be there.
Yeah.
So this is where we got it a little bit separated, because this is for the building itself. I agree, 100%. This was talked about up front, that we use our facilities people as much as possible to save money. That was the purpose
Right.
of saying this up front.
I want to clarify what I meant. I'm not talking about it wasn't a good idea to use our folk. I'm just talking about the fact that when you add the dollars in there, let's not lose sight of the
I
fact
agree.
that we're paying our folk to do that work.
Oh, yeah.
And so therefore, whether it was our ABC contract out there, our people, it's dollars, it's still a dollar, so.
That's right.
Let's add it together, make sure we know that we're spending, more than $470,000 on this 1 and 3 phase, not, okay, that's.
All right.
thank you.
One quick question. All right, Commissioner
These,
Page.
these estimates up here on phase one, they're not necessarily set in stone. I'm just
No, they're just.
No,
not
they're
getting
not.
too deep into
They're
the weeds.
not.
I'm just looking at the ramp and the front stoop. It looks like it went back up.
Yeah, I know.
Well, we think we can, get those numbers down. We can
Okay,
do it.
I thought so. That's,
All right, we're running a little,
Right,
Go ahead. Go ahead.
that's one of the issues, is the numbers fluctuate up and down. I mean, there's got to be some control on, you know, you come up with a figure, it may not be exact, but this fluctuating way up, way down, up, back and forth, that's part of the issue.
Well, and that's why, like I said, with phases 1 and 3, Kendall will be doing it. So we'll have control of that. And then on the other phases, the architect will have come back with plans on that. And at that point, we'll bid that out.
all right, I think we beat that horse enough today, and just remember, we
Yeah, the
did make
college
those
will be-
comments already, so we don't have to repeat them
That's
again
right.
in the next meeting. Okay, moving on to item number 4.
Okay.
That is motion to approve preliminary assessment resolution for Canterbury Village and North Creek subdivisions.
Well, this starts that process that we've been working on, and let me get to the right page here. 135, if you go to page 135, this is the resolution, and this starts the process on this project. And essentially when you get through all the whereases and everything, basically what it does, the pertinent part is section 1 where it says the board hereby declares its intent to undertake this project. Then you describe the project. And all of these, by the way, are itemized in state law, so we're having to address everything that's in the state law on this. The basis for making the assessments will be the number of buildable lots abutting any of the streets. That's section 3. Section 4, the Board of Commissioners intends to specially assess to cover 100% of the cost of the work, because that's another provision. You have to determine what percentage you're going to do. Section 5 is the Board of Commissioners intends that none of the special assessments for this project will be held in abeyance. I guess I'll get off on a little bit of a tangent there, is if you were doing a water and sewer project, sometimes that can take a year and a half or so to get the project finished, and so you hold these in abeyance until the project's completed, but that's not the case here. We should be fine with this. Section 6, payments of assessments will be made fully within 30 days after the date that the notice of confirmation of the assessment roll is published, or in the alternative, any portion of an assessment not paid within the 30-day period shall be paid in 10 equal annual installments, and that's the maximum amount allowed, maximum number of years allowed by state law. The first installment with interest is due on the date when property taxes are due, and one installment with interest is due on the same date in each successive year until the assessment is paid in full. And the interest rate we're recommending to you is 5% per annum on any outstanding balance. Number 7, this is the order setting February the 2nd, 2016 at 9:30 a.m. here for the public hearing on this, at which time people will come in and make any comments they want to make on the project. Now remember, with this first resolution, we do not have the cost estimates yet. There will be a second one later when the DOT gets those numbers to us. So And then Section 8, a requirement of state law is the clerk to the board is directed to provide the notices of the preliminary resolution as required by state law. And what that is, we have to mail out in first-class mail to every one of these 123 property owners about the public hearing. And Marcia has that ready to go. We also have to advertise it in the paper, and she's got that ready to go. So that's basically what you're doing with this resolution. You are stating your intent to move forward with the project, calling for the public hearing so that people can come in at February 2nd meeting, and we'll have a public hearing on it and discuss it, and then move forward from there.
All right. Item 5, motion to approve the purchase of an agreement of the hangar at Wayne Executive Jet Port. Tommy, I think you're going to give us some information on that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning. 2 months back, we approved a budget amendment for the Eastern Region funds that are designated for the airport to purchase the hangar that's owned by Don Sasser. And this action item today is requesting that the board approve the purchase agreement for that so we can go ahead and complete that transaction.
Is there an appropriate budget amendment to be included in that motion?
It was approved previously, a couple meetings back on that.
Good enough. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, item 6 here is, and 7, will be the appointment of a working group to interview for a construction manager at risk. And item 7 is the appointment of a noise, junk car, and housing code working group to review those and make recommendations back to the board.
Right.
County manager's comments?
I'll have a few, but nothing pressing.
All right, and then Board of Commissioner committee reports and comments will follow that. We do need to go into closed session, and if it's okay, we'll go into closed session at this time.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
before we go, Commissioner Gurley and I is the only two that have the 2 minutes left. Everybody else used their 2 minutes.
Is that right? Okay. Well, that's good to hear. I'm glad you're keeping clock out there. Do I have a motion that we go into closed session? So moved.
So the performance of employees and attorney conflict.
Okay. Motion on the floor to go into closed session. All in favor, raise the right hand. And we're now in closed session.